Hello everyone and welcome to today's Wild Rift video. Today I'm going to be showcasing all of the changes that's happening to the items, the boots and the boots enchants in Wild Rift patch 6.2. There is a lot to uncover in this video. I did over 100 screenshots. I streamed for 6 or 7 hours yesterday going through all the changes, and I think there's going to be some changes that you are all going to love. And if you enjoy Wild Rift content and you want to support the channel, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, because all of these new items that I'll be revealing today with all of the item updates, I'll be going through and telling you what champions you should be building these new items on. First, let's start with the physical items and talk about the items that are going to be removed in patch 6.2. We're going to be saying goodbye to Stormrazor, Immortal Shield Bow, and Solari Charge Blades. The new items: Soul Transfer, new AD carry item coming to Wild Rift in patch 6.2. The item itself is actually different to what you saw on the patch preview. The attack damage has actually gone down from 30 down to 20. The crit rate has stayed the same, and the attack speed has gone up from 30% up to 35%. The great thing is you'll be able to see the build order here as well. We have Zeal, Noon Quiver, and only 350 combined gold to build up to Soul Transfer. As for the passive, when your attack critically strikes an enemy champion or large monster, you summon a clone that lasts for 4 seconds to attack nearby enemies. The clone will inherit, used to be 30%, now it's only 25% of your attack damage, the champion that you're playing, and additionally gains 30% of your crit rate as attack speed. You can have up to 2 clones that can exist at the same time, and as you can see from the Chinese PBE patch notes, if the clone is longer than 600 units away from the main body, it will disappear over time. Like I said, I think this item overall is going to be interesting to see how it fits in the meta. Looking at all the other crit items at the moment that are getting changed and reworked, I think it's going to be very difficult for this item to fit in, but it can still work on maybe some attack speed champions that want to benefit a lot from attack speed rather than the attack damage. Maybe some on-hit items we'll have to see maybe built on top of this. But the more attack speed you get, the more clones you'll be able to summon, the more damage you'll be able to do. So again, not really maybe for these caster AD carries. It's going to be more for these attack speed, you know, AD carries that want to hyperscale into the late game. For the first item change, Nash's Tooth, the second part of the passive, the ability power ratio is going up from 25 to 30%, and now you'll be able to deal adaptive damage instead of just magic damage. Offers a bit of that flexibility now if you want to build Nash's as an on-hit AD item. However, overall this is a buff to Gwen, since you'll be able to build this item and benefit a lot from both the adaptive damage, still doing magic damage, and also scale more with her ability power. Bloodthirster has some significant changes coming in patch 6.2. The total cost of the item is going down from 3,300 to 3,000 gold. You're still going to be getting 850 AD, 25% crit chance, but now you'll be getting 15% attack speed. This attack speed is going to be higher than the Bloodswarm passive that you had before. However, you are losing out on about roughly 11 to 25 AD on this item. So it might not be the go-to core item on some AD carries. Instead, because Immortal Shield Bow is being removed from the game, the passive from Immortal Shield Bow is moving over to Bloodthirster. So when the health value is likely to be less than 35% health, after the next damage, this item will generate that shield. But also on top of the shield, you'll also be gaining armor and magic resist. So that's the new addition to the Immortal Shield Bow passive that wasn't there before. And also on top of that, you will be able to get more physical vamp from the second part of the passive if you're able to critically strike. So it's still going to be good if you need survivability on some champions like maybe Zeri and Ashe, but with some of the other AD items that I'm going to be talking about, as I mentioned, I don't think Bloodthirster is going to be that go-to core item anymore in Wild Rift. The build path has also changed, getting rid of one of the long swords, so you won't be able to get as much AD from the components, but because the item is cheaper, it's going to be a little bit easier to purchase. Infinity Edge is getting a new addition to its passive. The attack damage, the crit rate, and the Infinity passive is staying the same, but now we have a new passive called Limit Break. When your total crit gains from items exceed 100%, every 1% of access crit will grant 0.6 bonus critical damage. This is going to be, I think, very powerful on champions like Yone, Yasuo, and Trendemir that already gain bonus AD if their crits exceed 100%. But also you can try and use this on someone like Jhin, a champion that loves a lot of AD. You're still going to be building items like Collector and Magnetic Blaster. And with Infinity Edge on top of that, you could build full AD items, and then your crits in the late game could be doing up to 1,600 damage. Mortal reminder, like Bloodthirster is seeing its cost be reduced from 3,300 to 3,100 gold. The attack damage is going down from 30 to only 25. You're keeping the crit rate, and now you gain 15% attack speed. The Lost Whisper passive is being slightly changed as well to try and stop some of these Baron Lane champions and junglers from building this item. You're going to be getting 33% armor pen anymore. You only get 30%. However, if you do critically strike, then that armor penetration is going to go up by 6%. So you're roughly going to be getting the same amount of armor pen as before if you critically strike. But if you don't critically strike, you're only going to get 30% armor pen. This is trying to move this item away from some Baron Lane champions or even some junglers. I think there are certain junglers that are still going to buy this item because they could still benefit a lot from the attack speed and the attack damage. But maybe some of these Baron Lane champions will be building items like Chempunk Chainsword instead if they need to apply grievous wounds. And that's for the build path. We'll talk about it a little bit later on, but with Last Whisper losing the longsword and also going down in value, with the Last Whisper tier 2 item itself not gaining any more attack damage, you can now gain more crit with the Crit Cloak, giving you a little bit more burst damage early on if you want to try and go towards crit, but you still have the Executioner's Calling in there if you want to build the tier 2 item and then delay your item and build Mortal Reminder a little bit in the later stages of the game. Magnetic Blaster is getting a pretty big rework this patch. This item is now going to offer attack damage. You're not going to be getting 35% attack speed anymore. You're only going to get 25%. The passive has slightly changed as well. You still gain the extra bit of movement speed and you still have the energized passive. Your range is only going to be increased by 100 instead of 125. The bonus magic damage is still going to be there, but now you're going to be able to gain movement speed when you proc the energized passive. Now, if you think about this, with Storm Razor being removed, it now means that you can't add the magic damage on top of each other. Before, you could build Storm Razor and Magnetic Blaster together to add the bonus magic damage to both items together. But with Storm Razor no longer in the game, they were like, okay, let's add some attack damage to this item. Let's add a little bit of movement speed. We unfortunately don't have the slow from Storm Razor. We only have the movement speed only moving over from that item. But I think this item is going to be a lot more powerful now with the attack damage getting built in. The bonus magic damage didn't really do too much, but now with this item offering AD, you still gain a lot of extra range overall, and also still a little bit of magic damage in the kit. It means this item could be a lot more viable now on so many AD carries. Phantom Dancer has never really received any love in Wild Rift, but this patch the love is definitely on its side. It's going to be more focused towards attack speed now rather than attack damage, with the attack damage going down by 5 but the attack speed going up by 10. And now with the passive, you don't need to attack 4 times to gain the 25% bonus attack speed. Now all you need to do is just hit an enemy champion once and you gain the extra attack speed and the movement speed, which lasts for 3 seconds. And if you're able to keep critting and keep kiting, keep auto attacking with this item, the duration is going to increase by 1 second every single time. There is going to be a cooldown now on this item, which is going to be 20 seconds, but only needing to auto attack a champion once to gain 25% attack speed. With the item already having 40% attack speed, that is a whopping 65 attack speed that you can get from one item. So if there's any sort of champion that wants to benefit from attack speed like Ashe, or maybe even someone like Vayne if you want to build her more crits, or even someone like Callista. This is going to be the perfect item for them. And with this item now being more focused towards attack speed, you can see that Noon Quiver has been replaced by Zeal. We do have a longsword in there for a little bit of attack damage, but you're not going to receive a lot. So it does mean that this item is probably not going to be a first item purchase unless the champion needs a lot of attack speed. But also the total gold is going down from 3,000 to 2,800 gold. With Wit's End, they're hitting a little nerf onto this item with the price going up by 100 gold. And now the on-hit damage is being reduced. Before it was 15 to 65, now it's only 10 to 55. However, you will be able to heal now with the damage dealt instead of the effects post mitigation damage. So it does mean you're going to get a little bit more healing, but with the price going up and the on-hit damage going down, this will hopefully hurt some of the on-hit builds that are very popular right now in the meta. Essence Reaver is getting one of my most requested changes for an item since forever in Wild Rift, and this item will finally be getting a Spell Blade passive. The item itself is going to be costing a whopping 50 less gold. Whoop-de-doo. You're going to only get a 5 AD reduction, but I think that's completely fine considering how much better the passive is going to be. But on top of the Spell Blade passive, you can now also gain up to 3 charges that last 10 seconds. Sounds like a pretty familiar item, right? Sounds exactly like Solari Charge Blade that is going to be removed in patch 6.2. Some of the passive from Solari Charge Blade is now moving over to Essence Reaver. So it's not only going to work like Trinity Force now, where it's going to work on your first auto attack after using your ability. You can now stack 3 abilities on top of each other and then proc them all with your auto attacks. It's not going to cause magic damage though. It's going to be causing additional physical damage, but you're also going to be getting movement speed afterwards as well. But as you can see with this passive now being able to critically strike, and each skill can only generate 1 layer of the charge 2 times, it sounds exactly like Solari Charge Blade. And we still have the mana drain as well. This is going to be a core item on Lucian. We know how strong Solari Charge Blade was before on Lucian, but now with this item, you have the attack damage, you now have additional physical damage on top of that as well with the passive. And also mana drain means that you can use your abilities a lot more often as well. And an even better change with Essence Reaver is that the build path has changed to now include Sheen. So you get the Sheen spike in the early game when you're playing someone like Lucian, if you want to use this as an aggressive source during the early game. And then that can also move into your crit cloak and your longsword, and then build into the final item. This is going to give so much power to Lucian. You can also try and use this on someone like Xayah as well. It can also definitely come in handy, since you'll be using your abilities quite a lot. And when you combo this with Magnetic Blaster that I already spoke about, and the Navori Quick Blades, which I'll talk about a little bit later on, this is going to be one of the most exciting items to try in the next patch. Speaking of the Navori Quick Blades, let's talk about it as our next item, because this is going to combo so well with caster AD carries and also Essence Reaver. In terms of the item itself, the gold is going to stay the same. We are going to be losing 5 attack damage, and instead of the ability haste, we're also going to be gaining attack speed. We still have the Death Strikes passive, however the percentage is going down from 20% down to 15%, but read that second part of the passive. That's gonna cook. We're gonna have some cooking happening with this item. Your skills can increase the damage by up to 12%. Now, it doesn't actually say it on the client, but this is going to be based on your critical strike chance. So if you have 50% crit strike chance, your skills and your abilities basically are going to be increased by 6% damage. If you have 25%, it's going to be 3%. And if you have up to 100% critical strike chance, your abilities are going to be dealing 12% more damage. This is crazy when you think of this with Essence Reaver as well, with the Spell Blade passive, allowing your abilities and your auto attacks to do more damage. Just think of this item as a combination with Essence Reaver, with Magnetic Blaster on top of it as well. It's going to be a scary item combo to play against. And this is one of my most excited items, I think, coming into patch 6.2. The build path has slightly changed as well. We're getting rid of the hammer and we have the Noon Quiver instead, with Navori now having attack speed instead of ability haste. Honestly, I much prefer Noon Quiver in the early game compared to Warhammer. It just offers a little bit of an easy access to a build path, and also Noon Quiver in general just offers a lot more value of an item compared to Hammer. Everyone's favorite item, Collector, is actually getting buffed this patch. The attack damage is going up from 40 up to 45. We still have the killer passive in there with the extra armor penetration, but the deaths and taxes passive now has scaling and also snowballing effect on top of it as well. The base value is now only going to be 4% instead of 5%. However, it now scales with your critical strike rate, and it's going to be 2%. So if you have 100% critical strike rate, your threshold where you can execute enemies is going to go up from 4% up to 6%, which is higher than the 5% threshold than before. But wait, there is more. Every single time that you get a kill, this threshold is going to permanently increase by 0.1%. So every 10 kills that you get, and if you snowball the game out of control, this is going to go even higher. 10 kills equals 1% to the threshold. So some games you might be able to get up to 7, maybe 8% of the threshold, which is nearly double than the collector from beforehand, on top of the extra AD that you're going to be getting as well. I wouldn't be surprised if some people try to cook with this item and try and build this item on champions like Jhin and Samira and try and snowball in the early game. With Eclipse, the price is going up from 2,900 to 3,000 gold, but it does mean that the item is going to be getting some buffs. The attack damage is going up from 60 up to 65, and now the percentage of the target's maximum health damage is going up from 6% up to 7%. Everyone's probably most hated item is back. The rumors are true. HULLBREAKER is returning to Wild Rift in patch 6.2. But the item is completely changing. You can see that I have the stats of what the item was before it got removed, and to be honest, it was one of the most toxic items in the game. It's what really came up with the whole Inting Scion tech, where you just take towers and never join team fights. The item is now changed to what it was before. In terms of the stats, the health has been actually increased from 325 up to 400. The attack damage has been decreased. The gold is still staying the same, but the passive is going to work a little bit differently. We do gain a bit of movement speed. It's funny how the second passive is called Gangplank, maybe a bit of a teaser to Gangplank there. But now every 5th auto attack against a champion or epic monster will do 160% damage. That is also going to scale with your health. If this is a structure, then it's going to increase to 240 base plus 9% of your bonus physical damage. This is a new passive to HULLBREAKER that we haven't seen before. Importantly, this is not going to be every single auto attack. This is only going to be every 5th auto attack. So you have to time it to make sure that you can time the damage on structures or the damage against enemy champions. The boarding party passive is kind of similar to what it was before. You're not going to gain extra armor and magic resist towards yourself. However, you still have the cannons, the super minions, and the range minions that are going to be getting extra armor and magic resist. However, now the armor and magic resist is going to be 20 to 130, and also the magic resist is going to be 10 to 120. So it's still going to be a split push item that is still going to benefit a lot of champions like Scion, as I mentioned before, maybe champions like Camille, Fiora, and Jax that want to try and look to split push. But as I mentioned, you yourself are not getting any armor and magic resist anymore. It's more based on auto attacking at the right time, using that 5th auto attack to try and take down towers, but that's going to be heavily nerfed compared to the 40% increased damage to structures that you did with every single auto attack that you did before with HULLBREAKER. But I'm very curious to see what this is going to do. I'm worried at the same time. I hope this doesn't bring back Inting Scion. We have to wait and see. But let me know down in the comments what you think of the new HULLBREAKER stats and what champions you're going to be playing with this new item. Our first Bandle themed item, or you can really call them mythic items, to be honest with you, Runan's Hurricane. Unfortunately, this item is not going back to a crit item. We're now basically getting a new passive with this item. It still gives you 35% attack speed. The Wind's Favor is getting slightly nerfed. It's going to go down from 20 attack damage and 40 ability power to now 15 attack damage and 30 ability power, but the Wind's Fury passive is staying the same. This on-hit damage and the crossbows that you can now spread to enemies are still going to be able to critically strike. The most important thing though is right at the bottom of the new passive. After 2 normal attacks, your next normal attack will shoot an additional crossbow arrow with 10% physical damage to the target and apply on hit effects. I did test this item because you're probably wondering how the item works. The description is not very clear, probably something to do with the translation. But basically how this works is that with Runan's Hurricane, you can spread your auto attack to the 2 closest enemies. When you do that twice, the third auto attack that you deal is going to deal damage to the primary target only. That 10% extra physical damage is only going to happen to the primary target that you are auto attacking. However, this is kind of like a Rage Blade-ish passive without like the stacking attack speed that you have from Rage Blade, but this is a second part where you keep auto attacking over and over again as an on-hit item, and you keep dealing bonus damage every single time. I think this is going to make the item, you know, very, very strong. I think it's going to be very powerful when you're going for more on-hit items. Terminus has not changed at all. The item is still going to be very strong. As I said, you don't get a lot of attack damage this time around, but every third auto attack, you are going to be dealing that extra little bit of bonus damage to give you that bit of extra kick when you keep auto attacking a lot with items like Runan's Hurricane. Our second mythic or Bandle fantasy themed item, I need to figure out what I'm going to call these items, is Duskblade. The AD is going down from 55 down to 50. The Razor and Nightstalk passive are staying the same. You're still going to be getting the armor pen. You're still going to be able to deal bonus damage on your first auto attack, but we are getting probably one of the most toxic and annoying passives in Wild Rift, Nightfall. Defeating an enemy will grant you 1 second of invisibility, and during invisibility, you will gain 60% movement speed with only a 5-second cooldown as well. This is going to make this item very scary in my opinion. There was times in League of Legends when Aatrox were building this item, and the invisibility and everything overall about this item was just extremely toxic to play against. Actually, one of the reasons why they had to remove that passive entirely from PC League of Legends. But I guess we get the backside now of League of Legends, and they're just like, yeah, we can add to Wild Rift. It's not that big of a deal. I'm very worried about this item. I think this item is going to be very, very powerful. The invisibility is going to be very strong on assassins. Talon, if you think about Kayn, Kha'Zix, any sort of AD assassins that you can think about, Rengar, that can benefit from the invisibility to reposition and, you know, move around to try and wait for their cooldowns to come back alive. It's definitely a very scary time if you're an AD carry player or even a mid lane mage, because that invisibility is just going to be very toxic and very annoying to deal with. The third Bandle fantasy themed item is going to be Serolda's Grudge. I've already mentioned how Mortal Reminder is a lot more popular because it has Grievous Wounds. But what if I told you that they added Grievous Wounds now to Serolda's Grudge, and now you're going to be able to use this as an item if you do need anti-heal. However, it does come with a little bit of a setback. Let me explain to you. So the item itself is going to cost 200 more gold. It's going from 3,100 up to 3,300 gold. The stats are staying the same. The armor penetration is staying the same, and also the icy passive. The new part is the second part of the passive, which is called Frostbite. Enemies affected by the cold slow down. The target will be inflicted with Frostbite for 6 seconds. If you inflict 3 layers of Frostbite, you'll be able to cause enemies to go into a bleeding state, where they'll be able to take physical damage over time. But also, this bleeding effect is going to apply 50% Grievous Wounds lasting 3 seconds. Now, as I said, the downside to this item having grievous wounds is you're not going to get grievous wounds right at the start in terms of your damage. You need to apply the 3 layers of frostbite to be able to apply grievous wounds. And it can be a little bit difficult because sometimes if you're jumping in, say you're building this item on someone like a Kha'Zix or a Kayn, if there is a support by your side or someone that has heal, they will use heal before probably Kayn or Kha'Zix is able to deal 3 sources of damage. And even if them champions do deal 3 sources of damage, they need to wait for their abilities to come back up and available and come off cooldown for you to benefit from the grievous wounds that you're going to be able to apply. So then you can burst them down and try and kill them before they heal back up to full health. Like I said, I think this is a great change to try and make this a more viable item, but I think with the passive only applying, or with the grievous wounds only applying after you apply frost 3 times, I still think Mortal Reminder is going to get the edge. The build path as well has changed, as I mentioned already, with Last Whisper now not building from a longsword and you not getting any attack damage from Last Whisper. You now can build an additional longsword with Seralda's Grudge, and also the price has increased of this item as well. So it means that you need to save up a little bit more gold now before you can fully complete this item. Our final change for the physical side of things with the items for patch 6.2 is going to be happening with Death's Dance, which is also turning into a Bandle Fantasy themed item. The stats are staying the same, the price is staying the same, and the first part of the passive is staying the same, where you're able to heal once you get a takedown. However, now with the Cauterized passive, 32% of physical damage and magical damage taken is going to be stored as true damage over 4 seconds. Bit of an interesting change, to be honest with you. I think that if you want an item that can give you some magic resistance or stop you taking a lot of burst damage, then there are a lot of better options. I think more of my Mortius is a much better option. Even if you're more of a tanky champion as well, you can build something like Spirit Visage. I don't mind this item. Say for example, if you have 3 AD items on 3 AD champions, sorry, on the enemy team, or 4 AD champions, and then you have 1 AP burst mage in the mid lane. This is going to stop both the physical damage and the magical damage, trying to do a lot of burst damage, but you are still going to be taking that true damage over time, and you need to make sure you kill someone to heal that extra bit of damage that you're taking back up. But I do like where they're going with Death's Dance. I think the item overall has been pretty weak for quite some time, and it did need a bit of a change. It can be very good against some AD champions that maybe do a lot more, magic damage. There are champions like Irelia that does a little bit of magic damage. Jax does a lot of magic damage, but in my opinion, if you're against Jack, you can just go for magic resist boots and maybe even more of Mortius, because he deals mainly magic damage. But it gives you that bit more flexibility when it comes to bruiser items and keeps your options open when it comes to the mid and the late game. There are going to be some changes to some of the tier 2 items and some of the components that you need to build to complete full items. The shard is now going to be giving you attack damage instead of attack speed. This tier 2 item now only builds into Magnetic Blaster that gives you attack damage, so it's nice that this can now give you a bit of attack damage to give you a little bit of power in the early game. Nash's Talon is getting a slight nerf, where it's going to be dealing only you're only going to be gaining 15 attack damage and 30 ability power instead of 20 and 40 ability power, again trying to make it on par with items like Nash's Tooth. And finally, I've been talking about it for a while, but Last Whisper is also getting a slight nerf as well, and slight buff. The cost is going down from 1,300 down to 800, which is a lot of gold. However, you're not getting 15 attack damage anymore, and the armor penetration is being reduced from 15% down to 12%. Now that the big lump of the physical items have been spoken about, let's move on to the magic damage. First item is going to be Liandry's Torment. This is getting some big changes. This is also going to be a Bandle Fantasy themed item. Big thing now with the Torment passive is it doesn't scale anymore with your ability power. It's going to have just a base value, which is going to be 0.6 to 2%. Before, it was 0.4%, but the reason why people didn't want to build this as a first item is because it scales with 0.005% of your ability power. So you actually wanted to build this more of a second, third, maybe even fourth item. But now it has a base value. It means this item is going to be built a lot more as a first item. And that's also thanks to the second part of the passive as well. Every 4 seconds of pain causing damage to an enemy, it will detonate the target and cause true damage. This is going to be incredibly strong for any champion that does damage over time. Morgana is going to be very powerful. If you hit that dark binding and if you put a pool underneath them, that damage over time from the pool, every single 4 instances of damage, you're going to be able to deal true damage. There is no cooldown on this as well, bear in mind. Lilia, another champion that does incredible damage over time. She already built Leandries, but it was more of a second item. But now you want to build this as a first item to benefit from the second part of this passive. You also got champions like Brand can also work well with damage over time. Zyra as well. I'm sure there's a lot more champions out there that can build this item, but this item is definitely going to be a lot more viable, not considering someone like Singed as well, which again, another core item for a champion like Singed. And the final item for the magic section is going to be Infinity Orb, another Bandle fantasy themed item. The ability power is going down from 85 down to 80. We still get the movement speed, we still get the flat magic pen, we still get the percent magic pen, and also the demise passive has not changed. You can still critically strike with your abilities when enemies drop below 35% health. But now we have a new passive on top of that, which is going to be called, well, it says Thunder Death, but it might be a bit of a mistranslation. So within 3 seconds of inflicting a critical effect on an enemy hero, if that enemy dies, lightning will fall at the death location, causing magic damage. Now, this is not going to be guaranteed. You know, it really depends on, you know, what happens in a team fight, what's going to be happening if you're going to be surrounded by multiple, enemy champions, and whether you're going to benefit from that. I think overall it's going to be it's going to be a nice passive to add to Infinity Orb. The item itself is not changing in terms of gold. You're just losing 5 ability power. It's still going to be a very, very strong item. But again, it really depends if enemies kind of follow up with the Thunder Death passive to be able to make full benefit of that extra magic damage that you're going to be able to deal. But overall, I don't think this makes too much of a difference to an item. I still think it's going to be built regardless of if it had the new passive or not. Moving into tank items now, Sunfire Aegis is going to be one of the Bandle City themed items. Again, not too much is changing in terms of the item. The cost is the same, the stats are the same. Everything about the passive stays the same, but it has again a new part to the passive, which is going to be the Burning Path. When sacrifice, in this instance Flame Touch, is full, the ground you walk on will burn, causing additional magic damage per second, lasting up to 5 seconds. Now, this can be carried on for so long as well, because the Flame Touch and the Immolate passive can keep on stacking and keep on going if you stay in combat. And now you have a little burn effect underneath you. So think of it a little bit like maybe Corky W with the burn underneath you, but a little bit more like Singed Q, for example, where you'll be able to run around and be able to have a flame that basically follows you around. But you have to make sure you do stay in combat to keep this passive going. It's going to be really good if you're trying to chase down enemies. I think it's going to be really good as more carry potential now for tanks up in the barrel lane. They have been popular for quite some time, so I'm quite glad that they're buffing Sunfire Aegis. They're giving it a new passive, so we can see maybe the likes of Ornn, maybe Malphite, or even someone like, you could maybe build this item on Volibear with Heartsteel as well. There's endless opportunities with this item now that you can deal more damage with flames being put underneath you. And the last tank item is going to be another Bandle themed item, Redemption, which is going to be losing 5 ability haste. However, now with the passive, you don't need to be near an ally champion for the Redemption AoE healing to proc. It will still proc if you know, every 8 seconds. And if you do have allies nearby, it will still heal them. But now this gives you a lot more solo opportunity and allows you to heal yourself. This means that you'll be able to use this maybe a lot more on some tanks, maybe up in the Baron lane. You can still use this on some tanks as well if you want to in the support role. Champions like maybe Rakan can use this very well. Again, because now you're not focused on staying near ally champions for redemption to proc, it's just going to proc every 8 seconds. So if it's just yourself nearby and no ally champions, the healing is still going to proc. I do think if you want an HP item though that does give you healing, Warmogs is still going to be a lot better because healing is so much more. All you have to do is stay out of combat for a few seconds, but it's nice to see that they're giving people more agency and more ability to be able to use some of these items on different champions because of some of these passive changes. Moving on to support items, Ardent Sensor is our first item with the stats again not changing, the price not changing. You still gain movement speed, and whenever you heal or shield an ally champion, you still give them bonuses, but then bonuses have changed. You still give them 15 to 40% attack speed. As you can see, the extra on-hit magic damage has gone down from 20 to 40 to now 16 to 30. However, the magic damage that you can deal with Ardent Sensor can now trigger a critical strike. It's going to be insane. The possibilities that you can do now with champions like Yuumi, Janna, Lulu, any champions that go Enchanter and you're playing a hyper carry, crit AD carry, you still want to go for Harmonic as a first item, which I'll talk about in my next item, why you still want to go for that as a first item. But if you build on Sensor as a second item, at this point your AD carry might already have 50% crit chance. And it works like that. If you have 50% crit chance, it means Ardent Sensor is going to have 50% crit chance. So it's going to be crazy how much damage you can deal. Imagine a fully equipped 100% crit hyper carry. You put an Ardent Sensor on that champion, you give them a crazy amount of attack speed, and also the on-hit damage that lasts for 6 seconds can also critically strike as well. I think it's going to make Enchanter supports even more popular than what they were before. They're already popular, they're already powerful, but they're just going to make them even stronger. And also with Harmonic Echo coming up as the next item. Harmonic Echo is going to be absolutely crazy this patch. It's the support item that has the Bandle theme for this patch. Now you might be wondering, why are you saying that when you're losing 15 ability power? That is quite a lot of ability power. But when you look at the passive and what they're adding to the passive, it's going to be absolutely crazy how much healing you're able to do. The base value of the original healing that you get from the, shielding or healing, the bonus healing you get from Harmonic Echo, that's going down from 150 base down to 100 base, and now it only scales with 10% of your ability power. But if you keep on reading, the next part of the passive will blow your mind away. Leap. Harmony will affect the primary target and will also bounce to a nearby friendly hero. We are getting the old Harmonic Echo back, where you can now get AoE healing with Harmonic Echo. But there's more. There's even more as well. When Harmony is triggered, it will provide recovery effects to the main target, so that primary target that you heal or shield, restoring 2% of the target's maximum health per second. Per second! You're basically giving them like Soraka healing over time with like her first ability, how her first ability works. Harmonic Echo not only is still going to be very powerful, like I said, you lost a little of ability power, which kind of sucks, but that's completely fine. The healing and the shielding that you can get from this item now is absurd. The bounce effect is back, meaning that you can heal multiple allied champions, and you can now heal and restore health over time to your primary target, which again, most of the time is probably going to be your AD carry. So when they're walking forward, when they're trying to crit and trying to do a bunch of damage, even if they don't have much physical vamp for themselves, you're going to be restoring their health over time. So it's going to feel like they have physical vamp in their kit to keep them alive. This item is just going to be absolutely bonkers. The price of the item as well is also going down from 2,700 to 2,600 gold. The build path has slightly changed. You don't now have the extra amplifying tome that you need to build anymore. You just have the lost chapter and the forbidden idol. You might need a little bit of extra gold now to go from your components to the completed item, but it's 100% worth it. This is why Harmonic Echo is still going to be a first item choice for supports, and then after that you're going to build Ardent Sensor with hopefully 50% crit chance at that point to make full benefit from the items. Also with the Ardent Sensor point, it means that you kind of want to build Ardent Sensor with more crit based AD carries instead of on hit AD carries. So again, trying to nerf on hit AD carries and trying to make people build more crit to become more powerful and more enhanced with some of these items. Some of the boots are going to be changing in patch 6.2 as well. Boots Lucidity and Boots of Mana are going to be two of the biggest changes in my opinion. Both of these boots have mana regeneration, but there are some champions that don't really need that mana regeneration. Champions like Akali and Rumble instead just go defensive boots because they're just a lot more powerful and they provide more stats. But now with Boots Lucidity and Boots of Mana, if the champion doesn't have mana, you're going to be getting health regeneration instead. Very similar to the defensive boots options that you get with plated steel caps and mercury treads. This is going to make it now a lot more viable for some of these champions that don't have any mana. Vladimir's going to get health regen, Akali's going to get health regen, Rumble's going to get health regen, but you can also still benefit from the ability power and the early magic pen in the early game. And speaking of plated steel caps and mercury treads, both these boots are also going to get a little bit of a change where now you're not only just going to get physical damage reduction and magic damage reduction, now this is only going to work on enemy champions. So now the damage that you get dealt by Baron, by Dragon, by jungle camps, minions, and the most important thing is towers is not going to get reduced. This means if you build armor boots and you're looking for a tower dive and you know that you're not going to take a lot of damage now with armor boots, you need to be a little bit more careful in patch 6.2 because you're not going to be getting the 7% damage reduction anymore. You're going to be getting the full 100% damage from the towers. It's going to mean that tower diving in general is going to be a lot more riskier, and also trading in the laning phase, you need to be a little bit more careful now because you're not taking reduced damage from minions anymore. So if you overstep, take too much damage from minions, you could be punished very easily. Moving on to boots enchants, we're saying goodbye to two boots enchants in this patch. Teleport enchant and meteor, but we are going to be getting more boots enchants in patch 6.2 and big reworks to some of the underperforming ones, meaning that these boots enchants are going to be a lot more impactful for certain types of champions. Our first new boots enchant is going to be Stride Breaker. After active use, it will move you forward a short distance and cause 150% physical damage to the surrounding area. After hitting, it will slow down the enemy by 30% for a few seconds. If you're a PC League of Legends fan, you would have recognized this as the first Stride Breaker that ever released on PC League of Legends as a mythic item. We are getting that over to PC League of Legends. This is going to be very powerful for bruisers such as Darius and also Garen. The slow especially is going to be very important for these champions to make sure that they can stick to the enemies and do as much damage as possible. Our next new boost enchant is Gore Drinker. Again, another mythic that's coming over from PC League of Legends onto Wild Rift. I feel like we're getting the toxic mythic items that really everyone hated. You deal 280% base as physical damage to nearby enemies, and you restore equal to 20% of your attack damage plus 12% of your missing health for each enemy champion hit. You've seen this already as a scary source for someone like Aatrox that already has a lot of inbuilt healing. The healing from Gore Drinker is going to be increased if you have other healing in your kit, like Aatrox or maybe other champions that you might have some base healing or base lifesteal in your kit. It's going to be very powerful for Aatrox. This can also proc vitals from Fiora and work as an auto attack reset. Very important to keep that in mind when you're playing Gore Drinker in the new patch. Auto attack resets, healing a bunch when you're surrounded by multiple enemy champions, and using it on Fiora to proc your vitals. And the final boots enchant is another mythic item moving over from PC League of Legends, which is Gale Force. This is going to give a dash to your AD carries and your mobile AD carries that need it to dash forward to secure kills or dash away to stay in safety. As you can see, you dash in a target direction and fire 3 missiles at the lowest health enemy near your destination, prioritizing champions. You deal physical damage equal to 50 to 150 plus 45% of your bonus attack damage, and before it had a 60-second cooldown. Now on the Chinese PB, it has already gone down to a 50-second cooldown. I think this is going to be a very popular item on so many AD carries that need mobility. Jhin, Ashe, Varus, even champions like Vayne and Xayah potentially as well. That extra dash is going to come in handy again if you want to play more aggressive or if you want to stay more on the defensive side. Of course, we still have boots and chants like Stasis, QSS. That's still going to be very popular, but I'm so happy that they're finally adding some more meaningful boots and chants into the game, so you have a bit more variety to build when you want to build and create your boots and chants opportunities. Onto the boots and chants that have received some reworks and changes. Glory enchant is now no longer going to be getting 75% movement speed when you're moving towards an enemy champion. Instead, the base movement speed is going up from 15% up to 30%. So now you have a bit more flexibility if you want to use it defensively or aggressively. The slow is going up by 10% though, from 50 up to 60%. And at the same time, if you shock an enemy champion, you will also gain toughness, which is tenacity, and slow resist for 4 seconds. So tenacity and the slow resist definitely going to come in handy, especially if you're playing champions like Olaf. It can be very important, especially if you don't have your ultimate. But any champions that you want to try and run down and use the glory enchant for, the extra tenacity, the extra slow resist in there means that you have more possibilities when you're running forward. Again, as I mentioned, you don't have that 75% crazy increased attack speed to run forward and basically get to the enemies within seconds, but it gives you the flexibility. If you need to use it defensively, you can, or you can still use it aggressively. Stoneplate enchant is receiving a rework as well. The base shield is going down from 28 down to 20%. However, now this was a little bit difficult to understand at first, but I think I have a good understanding of it now. However, it could also be a translation issue, but it says, and increase your own armor / magic resistance by 0.1% for every 1 point of extra armor and magic resistance, up to 35% shield. At first, I thought this was going to give you more magic resist and you more armor when you use Gargle Stoneplate, but I figured out that it's actually the more armor and magic resist you have, the more shielding you're going to get from Gargle Stoneplate. So if you're playing tanks, if you're building items like Twin Guard that already gives you a crazy amount of armor and magic resist, you're going to be getting up to that extra 35% bonus for your shielding. It's still going to decay for 4 seconds and still has a 60-second cooldown. And again, the same for the second part of the passive as well. For each nearby enemy, you gain additional shielding. Again, it's not going to scale as much with your HP anymore, but instead it's going to scale more with your armor and magic resist. This is really trying to make sure that bruisers don't build Gargle Stoneplate, and Stoneplate sticks as a tank item or a tank boots enchant. Because again, the more armor and more magic resist you have, up to 12%, if more nearby enemy champions are nearby, you're going to be getting even bigger a shield. There is a cap on both of these with 35 and 12%, as I mentioned, but like I said, they're really trying to make sure that this gets used more for tanks, for champions and players that build armor and magic resist, and not just for the HP. The reasons why bruisers were building before is because the HP values were so high. So even though you're building items like Sterox Gauge and Divine Sundra doing a lot of damage, Stoneplate also gives you a big shield on top of that as well. I really like this change. I definitely think Stoneplate should stick towards the tanks, and I think with Gourd Drinker and Stride Breaker coming into the game, that's going to open up more possibilities now for some of these bruisers in the Baron lane. Protobelt is also receiving a nice buff, and honestly a pretty scary buff as well at the same time. The magic damage is staying the same and it's going to be 70. The cooldown's actually going down to 50 seconds from 60 seconds to make it similar to Gale Force as more mobility. But now, when you use Protobelt and when you hit Protobelt on an enemy champion, it's going to reduce the target's magic resist by 15% for 3 seconds. And after you release it, you're also going to get movement speed as well. This is crazy for so many mobile AP assassins. You can think of champions like Fizz, Diana, Echo, Akali, but you can still use it on champions like Ahri as well. If you want to Protobelt forward and use your charm, you can do, and you're going to be able to reduce their magic resistance by 15% as well for 3 seconds. So when you use your charm, when you use your first ability with Ahri, that's going to be doing a lot of damage. When you're dashing in with Akali with Protobelt, you reduce their magic resist, and then you can move around with the extra movement speed and deal more damage. Again, these boots and chants are just getting a lot more meaning behind them. It's not just a dash now that does magic damage. It's actually a meaningful one now that you can reduce the magic resist, you can gain movement speed, you gain bonus stats that means that you want to build more of these boots and chants rather than just skipping them or building the same boots and chants over and over again. Hydra is finally getting the love that we all wanted. It's getting the PC League version where you can activate it and your auto attacks are going to automatically deal AoE damage. Of course, it's not going to do as much damage as before because Hydra before was just a one-off active that had a 10-second cooldown. But now, after you use this ability, your normal attacks for the next 9 seconds will produce a range splash, causing 14% of physical damage as splash damage. And the splash damage range for melee champions is going to be larger than range champions, of course, but I absolutely love this change. This actually works with Titanic Hydra as well. We are living in a world in 2025 where you can build Hydra as a boots enchant and Hydra as an item. One's Titanic Hydra, one is Ravenous Hydra, and they work on top of each other. It's going to be crazy, the possibilities that you can do. If people saying now that Shen can't push and you can't push with Shen and you can't split push, or you can't split push with, I don't know, Jax or Fiora, just build Hydra now. It's going to work so well. It also works with abilities that apply on hits as well with Hydra, like Wukong's Q as well. I love this. I love this boost and chant changes. There's more to come as well, but these boost and chant changes are just making me so excited for patch 6.2. Now, if you thought all these boosts and chants before were crazy, you wait until you see the Veil enchant. Veil enchant now has a cleanse and also an extra spell shield on top as well. So you can think of this as like the Chalice over from PC League of Legends. You give a cleanse over to an allied champion. Say, for example, if, I don't know, say a Jhin gets hit by a Renekton W or something, you use the Veil enchant and it works as a cleanse. It works as more reactionary more than proactively. It's not about prediction anymore. It's more about reacting to the time that you need to and using it as a cleanse. But you still get the same spell shield from before as well. So not only are you going to be cleansing one of the abilities, but you're also going to be blocking another ability on top of that as well. So you're blocking 2 potential major abilities on the enemy team. And that means that they're not going to be able to CC you. Honestly, like Veil enchant, I think is going to be the best support boots enchant in this game. There is a few other changes to other boots enchants as well, but Veil enchant is just a must-have, especially if you're playing enchanter supports in this type of meta. One of the underperforming boots enchants in Dreammaker is getting a buff as well. The blue bubble and the purple bubble, you're now going to be getting every 6 seconds instead of 8 seconds. And now, instead of reducing the next incoming attack, you're now going to be giving your allies bonus movement speed. I much prefer this over reducing the next incoming attack because you don't know when that's going to be happening. You don't know if that's actually going to be attack that you wanted to reduce. So now you get to give your AD carries or anyone on your team bonus movement speed, but now you can also still give them the extra on-hit damage as well, the extra magic damage from the next auto attack. That has been reduced a little bit in the early game. It's now 15 to 90 instead of 20 to 90, but overall I think the movement speed is going to benefit a lot more than the reduced attack damage from before. Repulsor is receiving a lot of love, but also at the same time making it a little bit more difficult to pull off. Instead of it now proccing as soon as you activate the boots enchant, it's now going to have a short delay. But now you can knock back and stun enemy champions. This stun is going to be roughly for a few seconds. You're still going to be getting the movement speed as well, and the cooldown has gone down to 40 seconds. The delay you can see on screen is not too bad. It's not too long of a delay, but also it just means that you have to more predict when a champion might jump towards you, because if you use this boots enchant too late, then you might kind of struggle to try and escape. But I love how they're adding stun to this as well. The knockback didn't really do too much because there's so many dashes and flashes in this game that they can just jump back on top of you again. But now there's a stun, it means you have more, outplay potential, and you can actually create a distance or flash away before that enemy can even start moving again. And finally, last but by no means least, my favorite boots enchant in Wild Rift patch 6.2, which is going to be Magnetron. Have you ever wanted a Nautilus hook that you can go around the map with? Have you ever wanted a Camille E that you could just go around the map freely wherever you want to? Well, now you can have that with the Magnetron enchant. You select a direction to release, and after hitting a friendly minion, a friendly champion, or a wall, you quickly reach that location and gain movement speed. Yes, you are hearing this right. Instead of selecting a minion, selecting a monster or an ally champion before, you now have a hook. Now, in my opinion, this does come with a upside, but also a downside. The downside is that it can be blocked. Most of the time with Magnetron, and why it's actually quite strong right now, is that you can use this on melee minions and jump straight to the melee minions straight away. But now with Magnetron, you actually need to move to the side and hit that hook on the minion, because if you just stand behind the range minions and you try and use the Magnetron enchant to go to the melee minions in front, you're going to hit the range minions behind them, so it can still be blocked. However, this offers so much more flexibility for this item. As I mentioned, you can use it on walls now to escape. You might even use this on AD carries to try and escape scenarios. You can use this to get into Baron pits quicker. There is crazy amount of possibilities that you could do now with Magnetron enchant, and that's why for me it is the most fun out there, and it's gonna cause some havoc on the Rift in patch 6.2. And with all the items, all the boots, and all the boots enchants out of the way, there's only one more thing to talk about. And that is, even though we are saying goodbye to the teleport enchant, teleport is now going to become a summon spell. A lot of you have been asking this for quite some time, but to be honest, I don't think it's going to be as strong as what people think. You can see here that before the 6th minute, you can only target buildings, you can only target towers, which is going to be after the spawn of the first dragon and the first Rift Herald. But also in Wild Rift, you have the portals that are already back in base, the Bandle portals that you can get back to lane quicker. You already walk back to lane very quickly. Wild Rift is a very small map, so I don't think it's worth taking something like Teleport Enchant, which has a 180-second cooldown, when you could take something like Barrier or Ignite instead and try and play aggressive during the early game, try and win that early game and try and get early tower platings. I don't think it's worth, you know, taking Teleport Enchant. Yes, you might not miss like 1 or 2 minions during the game. That's not worth it. I would much rather take a combat summoner spell, something that's going to allow me to win the laning phase rather than something that can allow me to teleport around the map. This might be good on some champions like Shen, for example. If you want to play split push champions like Sion, this can also be helpful because you can just TP into the fight straight away. But overall, I think most people are still going to stick to the combat summoner spells. And after a deep breath, that is it. All the item changes, everything that's coming in patch 6.2. There's no rune changes this time around, which thank God for me, because I'm losing my voice at this point with so much recording. But there is still so much more to unpack in 6.2. I will be doing another video in a few days time with more notes, more things to discover from the Chinese PBE, including the dragon spawn times, the marksman changes, and what's happening to some of the marksmen like Zeri, Varus, and how that's going to affect the meta. And of course, I'm going to be going through these items and giving you all the best builds. If I don't do it in video format, it will be over on the best website for Wild Rift Fire. As always, thank you very much for tuning into the video. I spent a lot of time and effort into this video, and I hope this is going to help you out. Hope you get a step ahead for the new season and for the new patch for 6.2. So until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.